Hello and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm Kevin Castley. Tonight I'm going to be taking another political spectrum quiz. So this one is just simply labeled Political Spectrum Quiz. There are quite a few of these ones. If I recall, this one was the one that I took a long time ago. And it not only gives you your position on political compass, but it also will give you a point on a couple of spectra, including foreign policy, and there was one other area that I forget. So we're going to be taking a look at this. It's a bit longer than the last one that I did, and then at some point when I have more time, I'm going to be doing a full run through of the long form of the 9 axes quiz that I did yesterday. So we're going to take a look at this. So first question here. Laws should restrict abortion in all or most cases. Well, let's see. In all or most cases, well, I'm gonna say disagree on that because obviously there's a threshold at which you don't want to have any abortions occur, but people should have the right to get an abortion up to a reasonable point, up to that I'll leave that up for doctors to actually determine, when you could consider it a legitimate life and whatnot, and so we're going to go with a disagree on that, not a hard disagree. We have question 2. And unions were indispensable in establishing the middle class. That one's a bit complicated. That one there, it's true historically, but unions have a lot of drawbacks, especially in a modern capitalist economy. And so we're going to go with agree on that. But again, I mean, it's in terms of economic history, yes. Oh, I forgot to mention, this one also asks you how much does this issue matter? So it's a bit more precise on that. So we're going to take a look at the first one. As far as abortion goes, it's not really something that I think too much about. I think to put it at a neutral mark is fitting. On this one here, yeah, I mean, economics is pretty important. We're going to go with somewhat on the scale towards a lot. Matters somewhat. Question 3. In nearly every instance, the free market allocates resources most efficiently. We're going to go with agree on that, but there are a lot of negative externalities. How much does this issue matter to me? A lot. I mean, I literally did a degree in economics. I care about this stuff, so we're going to go with 3 there. So, I mean, obviously, the free market has been the most powerful economic system in terms of bringing about prosperity in human history. There's nothing that comes close to competing with it, but negative externalities are a thing. So, but this question specifically just asking about, even efficient there. Efficient is a tough one because, of course, there's different definitions of efficiency. Obviously, Pareto efficiency is going to be different than, layman speak, layman parlance, right? So, but I know what it's getting at. It's basically talking about, I mean, yeah, it is a bit ambiguous there. If we're talking about Pareto efficiency, that means that you have an allocation, you have a setup in which you cannot improve anybody else's position without making somebody else worse off. But that also means that if somebody, say, has $1 billion and somebody else has $1, well, you couldn't take $1 from the person who has $1 billion because you'd be making them worse off even if it makes the other person better off. That's Pareto efficiency, right? So that would be a Pareto efficient outcome. So, but I think it's just generally getting at here the idea of not having waste, not having corruption, not having deadweight loss, that kind of idea. So we're going to go with agree, and of course it matters a lot to me. So we got a few people coming in. We got Svet here. Svet asks, what's this poll for? And so I'll be, obviously as I'm filling out the questions, I'm not looking at the chat. I have it open in another tab, but I will be checking out the chat every few minutes. Svet asks, what's the poll for? Political compass. Yeah, it's a political compass that also gives you a couple spectra, like foreign policy, that positions you on. And I think that that's important because I've always argued that the classical political compass, obviously we know it has a clear libertarian bias in it. It was made by libertarians, but it was always lacking foreign policy. I always thought, at a minimum, it should be a cube, not a square, because there should be a z-axis, of foreign policy. We've got Dr. Zayas here. He says, what's up, y'all? Got Olympian God. He says, and before Vosh sees this and unironically calls you a fash. Oh, yeah. He calls Charlie Kirk a neocon, and then he calls him a fascist. Oh, yeah, because neocon equals fascist, right? Right, my dudes? We got some people should not be allowed to reproduce. Oh, that one. That's a spicy question right there. That's a spicy question right there. I mean, obviously, the politically correct answer would be agree strongly and a lot. Otherwise, you're like, an evil eugenicist ghoul and stuff. But I mean, let's keep it real. Even if you're in prison, you're not going to be able to reproduce. So that right by there, I mean, unless you're in a state that allows like conjugal visits. So there's already some nuance brought into this. As far as if you've got a position, if you got a predisposition that you're going to transfer to your offspring towards some really bad stuff, or if it's going to cause some very unfortunate stuff to happen, there's a good argument to be made there that you should not be able to reproduce. This isn't something that I've done very much research on, though, but I'm not just going to go with the one that feels good on here. I'm going to say neutral on this one right now because it's something that I need to do more research on. How much does this issue matter? Well, to me, I'm going to give this one a neutral mark. I need to do more research on it. Access to healthcare is a right. I would say on that, I agree. And I mean, it's an issue over how do we create the system, at what level should it be private, at what level should it be like a public safety net, that kind of thing. But as far as it being a right, there should be a safety net. So yeah, you have to have like access to healthcare. So like at a bare minimum, and then we can have a debate over what it looks like past that bare minimum. So I'll check out the chat again. Dr. Zayas is in the chat. He says, well, no, the woke thing would be strong disagree. Oh, you're right. It asked, oh, should not be allowed to reproduce. That's right. Should not be allowed to reproduce. Zayas is right. I meant disagree strongly. Svet says, there is literally nothing wrong with eugenics in principle. Implementation is another matter. I have a feeling, like, again, this is something that I would need to do more research on. I have a feeling that even that statement there could definitely be construed as fascist. So I'm not going to get into that. But, we got Henry joining us tonight. Welcome, Henry. How's it going? We're going to go back and answer some more questions. 7, the rich should pay a higher tax rate than the middle class. Yeah, there are different types of taxes and everything else, but I believe in a progressive taxation. So I've over the years I've kind of changed my mind about that a few times because you can make a good case for a flat tax too. Some countries have a flat tax, but I believe in a progressive tax rate. I just think that it should be low across the board. So I'm going to go with agree on it. How much does the issue matter to me? And it matters a fair bit. So number 8, school science classes should teach intelligent design. Well, no, disagree strongly, I guess. I'm not opposed to schools teaching about it as a concept. I don't really think that science would be an appropriate class for that to take place. Religious studies, sure, right? If you have religious studies as an elective, or if that's a required course in certain jurisdictions, sure, but it's not really appropriate in science. So, but how much does it matter to me? It's not as important. It's not really like my sort of issue or whatever. We're going to leave that one with, a neutral. Yeah, neutral to somewhat. It's not really something I spend much time thinking about. 9, marriage must be heralded for the important role it plays in society. Well, I would have said in the past that I disagreed strongly with that. I think that, in terms of just looking at the economic nature of it as a financial arrangement, I think that, especially with how the tax code is structured and everything, it is clear that marriage is, it is an enabler of wealth building. So, ceteris paribus, a married couple is going to have an easier time building wealth due to the tax system than a non-married couple. And again, ceteris paribus, same jobs, everything else. So, same salary, etc. So, but then there's also this really traditionalist argument that latches onto marriage, this romanticized notion of it, even though in the United States, approximately half of marriages do result in divorce. And so I'm not going to give it some, I'm not going to imbue it with some magical overlaid sense of, mysticism or whatever. It's ultimately, marriage as, in terms of a legal contract, it basically breaks down to a financial arrangement, and in terms of when we're looking at the economic impact of it. So we're going to go with there. We're going to say neutral and neutral. So, okay, number 10. I'm going to take another look at the chat. I think you guys can probably guess what I'm going to say on this one here. So, Kamaljeet Ram says, I would agree with the claim that some people should not reproduce. Yeah, like I said, I need to do more research on that stuff. Vosh would, I'm sure, call you a fascist. We got Arthur. He says, no, Zaus. Gay rights means less people will reproduce. No, man. Arthur says, if we all got married, everyone could be rich. American Madhawk says marriage is dying. It's an outdated concept, especially given the legal system largely favors women. Yeah, there need to be serious reforms on the way that divorce, especially, is handled. I think a lot of the ideas and a lot of the mechanisms that adjudicate things like alimony, etc., are patriarchal in nature. They basically assume that the husband is going to be the primary income earner, which is not the case anymore. And increasingly, as time goes on, that's going to be less and less the case. So I'm going to say, we're leaving that neutral for now. We're on number 10 right now. Sometimes war is necessary, even if it means you strike first. Agree strongly, and how much does it matter? A lot. Like, this is Hawk Gang, of course. So. 11, patriotism is an overrated quality. Disagree strongly. We got a lot of fifth columns, a lot of Russia apologists. We got a lot of Assad bootlickers. We got a lot of Saddam fans in our society right now. A lot of edgelords on the internet who think it's cool to like the boots of dictators and crap on America and crap on the West. I wish we could have some more patriotism, So I'm going to say, disagree strongly on that. Now, of course, there's some nuance. Obviously, if you're in like North Korea, it's bad to be patriotic for that system. But I'm just filling this out as, for the West, for Canada, for the United States, this sort of thing. So I'm sure that this was made in the United States from an American perspective. And the U.S. could definitely use some more patriotism. Canada could definitely use some more patriotism. So could go with disagree strongly. And yeah, it matters a lot. I mean, that is like the pill. if we can't even agree that we should defend our civilization, then we're going to get buried and other civilizations will take over and we will be rendered to the dustbin of history. Of course, patriotism matters. So. "12. Radio stations should be required to present balanced news coverage." No. Who gets to decide what's balanced? That's dumb. What if somebody says Russia good and somebody says Russia bad? What are we supposed to be like, hey, look, Max Blumenthal over here says that Putin's the victim, and Bill Kristol over here says that Putin's a maniac. Who are we supposed to believe? I can't tell. That's beyond stupid. No, there's objective truth in the world. You should try to report on what the truth is. Also, freedom of speech. So let's not forget about that. So there is that. So we're going to go with disagree on that. And yeah, say it matters a lot. 13, government should do something about the increasing violence in video games. That's a meme. Oh man, imagine caring about that. Like imagine thinking that that has any relationship to violence in the real world. If anything, it's a way for people to blow off steam. So we're going to say disagree strongly. But as far as how much does it matter, it's not really an issue for me. Like I'm like the most casual gamer there is. We got number 14. If our leader meets with our enemies, it makes us appear weak. When Reagan met with the Soviets, it made him look badass because he told them to tear down the wall and they said, yes, sir. So that made him look based. When Trump met with Kim and said that he fell in love with Kim and that Kim was an awesome dude, it made him look very cringe. So it can go either way there. It depends. Are you negotiating from a position of strength or weakness? I mean, the only way that you could answer this is neutral. There's just not enough information there. As far as does it make you appear weak? Well, again, you can't really tell because if Reagan goes over to the Soviet Union, that made him look strong as hell because they bowed down to him. When Trump went over to North Korea, it made him look weak as hell because he bowed down to them. So it matters a lot to me. Like, okay, so I'm neutral on this because there's not enough information. But this issue matters a hell of a lot. So that's my response there. Let's take another look at the chat. We got Wyatt here. I like this suggestion. Wyatt says, do a political compass test as if you are Hassan Woke Bay. Oh man. I really like that idea. One of these days, I'll just do one of these and pretend to be like Kyle and Hassan and Abby Martin and be like, oh yeah, Russia good. And oh yeah, we're the bad guys and stuff. Oh man, that'd actually be kind of fun. We'll see. Yeah, no, we'll do that for sure. Pretending to be Hassan, taking a political compass. Oh, Jaeger's here. He says Zaus is a boss. Zaus is a boss. So I'm not even sure how long this test actually is. Okay, number 15. We must use our military from time to time to protect our supply of oil to avoid a national crisis. Well, if you're in Canada, Canada can produce a hell of a lot of oil. The problem in Canada is that we've got a bunch of brainlets that want to stop that from happening. And they want to take this endowment that our country was given, essentially, that we got lucky with all this oil and say, oh, we shouldn't drill that. Let's let the Saudis and the Russians drill it instead. Pathetic. So Canada doesn't have to worry about a supply of oil. As far as America, America is almost entirely energy independent. Like what, like 9% of American oil comes from the Middle East? So there are no wars for oil. I don't like this question. This question looks like it was written by Tulsi Gabbard making a political compass test to try to be like, are you a neocon? Are you a ghoul? It's like, let's just look at it. It looks like Noam Chomsky or Michael Moore wrote it out. We must use our military to protect our supply of oil. Okay, but like the U.S. doesn't go to war for oil. The U.S. produces its own oil. What? Again, did Michael Moore write this? How am I even supposed to answer this? Okay, let's just assume it says to avoid a national crisis. Okay, but like you could just draw oil domestically. You buy oil from Canada. Let's just assume that like I guess Canada is hostile and you're in the United States. Should the US use the military to protect the supply of oil or whatever? Well, you know what? I'm just going to answer this question seriously. The US gets almost all of its supply of oil from the US. So this question is almost asking we must use our military from time to time to protect the US's supply of oil, which is in the US, to avoid a national crisis. So it's basically asking you should use your oil to protect your borders. So I guess agree strongly, or you should use your military to protect your borders. I agree strongly. But I know that that's not exactly what this was intended as. That's a loaded question. I'm just taking a look at the chat again. Zaya says, silly question. Where does this ever happen? Is that what I'm not sure what that was in reference to? Is that about the oil thing? Because that's one of the dumbest questions I've ever seen on these. That's amazing. That's amazingly stupid. It's like, do you support wars for oil, bro? It's like, what wars for oil? Okay. Next question. Strong gun ownership rights protect the people against tyranny. Yeah, agree. And it matters agree strongly, and it matters a fair bit to me. You got to have some background checks, and you can't have mentally ill people getting guns. But apart from that, Second Amendment makes a lot of sense. 17, it makes no sense to say I'm spiritual but not religious. Disagree. And kind of neutral on that. But yeah, disagree there. Religion is more of a dogmatic thing centered around doctrine and whatnot. Spiritual is something that's just it's the sort of like mysticism apart from the natural world in that sense. Even something as simple as meditation could be branded as spiritual, but not necessarily religious. So there is a difference between the two. So yeah, it does make sense. You could say both are dumb, but there is a difference. So number 18. It is not the government's responsibility to regulate pollution. Well, no, there are negative externalities that basically mean that companies will have an incentive to look at their bottom line, and so that might impose negative costs or costs on other people, positive costs on other people, but they don't bear that cost, so they won't care. So you need to have some regulatory body in there that is charged with offsetting negative externalities and preventing them where they occur. But I'm not like Al Gore or anything about it. I'm going to say agree. And the issue, I'm kind of neutral on that. But yeah, I agree. "19. Gay marriage should be forbidden. Disagree strongly. And how much does it matter? Well, I'll say on that it matters a lot, even though like I'm straight, but I believe in equal rights. So number 20. It should be against the law to use hateful language towards another racial group. Well, it shouldn't be against the law. You should have free speech, but that doesn't mean that people can't think that you're a racist and make fun of you for being a racist. So that's a free speech issue right there. So 21, government should ensure that all citizens meet a certain minimum standard of living. There should be a basic income. There should be a negative income tax. That's what I support. As far as it enabling a certain minimum standard of living, yes, technically it does, but it's not like, oh yeah, $30 an hour because you sit at a cash register sort of thing. It's like, no, it has to be basic. Yeah. Certain minimum standard of living, yes. Yeah, it matters a lot. I think basic income is important, but it's not like everybody gets like a Ferrari or whatever, right? So number 22. Well, actually, I'll take a look at the chat again. So yeah, Ariel Suarez is right. He says it shouldn't be against the law, but not against consequences. Yeah. Yeah, just like have free speech so people can make an informed opinion on people instead of forcing them to be quiet about what they really think. So, number 22, it is wrong to enforce moral behavior through the law because it infringes upon an individual's freedom. Well, what are we defining as moral behavior here? Because you could say don't murder. That's a moral statement. I mean, if we're taking it from the idea of it infringing on somebody's freedom, you could talk about the non-aggression principle, that sort of stuff. But let's talk about what, like very potent drugs and stuff that obviously hurts other people. So I think part of the reason we have a government is to set standards. And I think that there are good reasons, good argumentation to be made that the government, that the legal system has a role in enforcing people to behave and not burn the system to the ground, basically. So again, it depends on what you define as moral behavior, what is the moral code, etc. But there are definitely actions out there that hurt other people around you. And on that, yeah, that one's tough. We're going to leave it there. Number 23, immigration restrictions are economically protectionist. Non-citizens should be allowed to sell their labor domestically at a rate the market will pay. Disagree strongly on that. Not that they're not necessarily economically protectionist. I think technically they are economically protectionist, but I'm really getting the vibe right now that this political quiz was made by one of those open borders libertarians who's super anti-war and watched like all those Ron Paul movies and Alex Jones movies about like how Bush did 9/11 for oil, that kind of stuff. And like how Cheney is like literally the son of the Antichrist. That's what I'm getting right now. Those kinds of vibes. Like anybody that cares about border security is a protectionist. It's like, okay, then I'm a protectionist. So non-citizens should be allowed to sell their labor domestically at a rate the market will pay. Yeah, but think about the consequences of that. Let's say you're the United States. You're going to have 800 million people come to America all of a sudden because America is better than their current place. Well, now all of a sudden you're at an equilibrium where America is just as shitty as everywhere that people were fleeing from. So no, it has to be regulated. You have to allow a maximum number of people through each year so that you can make sure that they're successful, they can get the help that they need to adjust, they can assimilate properly and be productive members of society. This whole, oh, but it's just about the labor and stuff, this very consumerist and and purely money-driven way of looking at it is very detrimental. And so I would disagree with this. I would say that it matters a fair bit to me. Now, I'm not somebody who's like a closed borders dude. Obviously, you need some immigration. I'm not even sure exactly where the threshold should be on that. If it's like $1 million a year, 500,000 a year, depending on the size of your country or whatever. But you can't just have open borders. That's stupid. And to call anybody who's against open borders a protectionist, it's like, even if it's technically true, that's a loaded term these days that refers to anybody that's not basically a libertarian, like how Charlie Kirk used to be. So before he started shilling for Trump. 24, an official language should be set and immigrants should have to learn it. Yeah, I agree on this one. I think that makes commerce a hell of a lot easier if everybody can speak a common language. Doesn't mean it's the only language, but yeah, you have to have a language so that we can all communicate with each other. I mean, that's how you build cohesion. That's how you build a sense of community and everything. This idea that, oh, we're all just going to be separate and nobody can understand each other or whatever. That's a recipe for fragmentation, balkanization, civil war at the logical conclusion of it. So I'm going to say it matters a lot. 25, whatever maximizes economic growth is good for the people. No. I talk about that on this show. Well, actually, I'll take a look at the chat again. See what yeah, Dr. Zayas, this question is used to out libertarians. Yeah, I really think this was made by like some open borders anti-war libertarian. That's what I'm getting. Like a Tulsi voter, that kind of thing, Ron Paul voter. 25, whatever maximizes economic growth is good for the people. No, screw that. I talked about this in that debate with Liz about the debt economy. Oh, but my growth rates. It's like, no, screw that. I'd rather have slower growth and have wealth than high growth and everybody be in debt for their whole life. Screw that. I'd rather have negative growth or decline in the short run and can like just cease trading with communist China than get a high growth rate and then become their slave essentially. And you can't take action against them because you owe them money and everything. No, screw that. There are way more important things than economic growth. National security, the big one, right? Wealth, etc. Health, happiness. There's so much that's more important than economic growth there. So we're going to disagree strongly, and it matters a lot to me there. We got number 26. Racial issues will never be resolved. It is human nature to prefer one's own race. Well, that one's a bit tough. I think that everybody has biases. That's now how you get rid of that. There's an argument out there that, well, people aren't born racist or whatever. People learn racism. I have yet to see evidence that that's true or not, because there's been a lot of studies that are done that will show, for example, that even like African American people perceive other African American people as more dangerous than whites, that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, a lot of these biases, they exist regardless of what race you are. So to what extent is that ingrained? What extent is that learned? I'm not sure on that. Some of it is innate. Some preference for one's own group is innate through evolution. That's not really debatable there. But can it be resolved in time? Well, sure. I'm sure it could be with education and stuff. But I think that it's always going to be one's nature to prefer one's like in group. Now, you could consider race part of that. That, I don't know. I think that there's a delusional element of people out there that think that you can just make, racial problems go away just through some legislation and stuff. And that's obviously not the case. And so it's going to take a very long time to get past that. And it might never happen. So on that, I'm going to say on this one, I agree. How much does the issue matter? I'm going to put it more around here right now because so many other factors are more important in terms of individual prosperity right now. Number 27, people with a criminal history should not be able to vote. Well, it depends what kind of criminal history we're talking about. Are we talking about like murder and stuff like that? Then that's obvious. Like you've already proven you suck at decision making. So, I'm just gonna assume we're talking about like felonies and stuff. Then I would say I agree. I would say that I'm neutral in terms of how important it is. Marijuana should be legal. Yeah, on that I would say strongly agree. How much does the issue matter to me? Not that much. Not that much. We'll take another look at the chat. Number 29. The state should fine television stations for broadcasting offensive language. Oh man, disagree strongly. It's not really that important of an issue, but like, well, I mean, I guess technically it is kind of a free speech issue because anybody can just kind of define offensive as politically charged, for example. I'm going to say, I guess it's probably a neutral issue there. So, question 30. It does not make sense to understand the motivation of terrorists because they are self-evidently evil. Well, I disagree strongly on that one. I did a video on this a while back called On Devil's Advocacy. And I was more so talking about North Korea there. But I was making the point that it makes a lot of sense. It's good to play devil's advocate to understand how your enemy thinks. The problem with doing it is that if you don't step back and you're not, cognitively equipped to handle it, you will go down the rabbit hole of literally sympathizing with them and becoming the devil. And if you play devil's advocate your whole life, as I say, you will eventually become the devil. So it's a useful tool to understand how your enemy thinks so you can get the upper hand. But if you're an idiot and you're a fool about it, then it is a problem and you should avoid it because you can't handle that. So for experts, for security personnel, etc., to study the motivation of terrorists, that makes a lot of sense. For the CIA to do it, it makes a lot of sense. For Hassan Piker to do it, no, because then that's just going to make him a terrorist apologist. Because he can't step back and say, oh, those are the bad guys. We're not on their side. He's going to say, oh, I understood their motivations, and now I think America deserved 9/11. He literally said that. You can check out the stream last night where he attacked my friend Wyatt's appearance. Hassan Piker did. This dude thinks America deserved 9/11. The dude is on Al-Qaeda's side. That dude is a joke. That's what can happen when devil's advocacy goes wrong. You can't tell your devils from your angels, that kind of stuff, right? And so he's on their side. He's their Cal now, like Kremlin Kyle. He's their Cal. He played devil's advocate too long. He didn't have the fortitude to handle it. What a child. So, yeah, I disagree with this strongly, and it matters a lot because national security is like the most important thing. So, we can't even talk about all this other stuff if we don't have a secure country. So, okay, so we're on part 2 now. Part 2 of 2. The lower the taxes, the better off we are. Generally speaking, yeah. Within a range, yes. 32. Minority groups that have faced discrimination should receive help from the state to get on an equal footing. So are we talking affirmative action? Are we talking reparations? What are we talking about here? How long ago was the discrimination? Was it 150 years ago? Was it yesterday? Is it today? That one's tough. I mean, we're going to say disagree on that. I believe in a meritocracy. I believe in equal opportunity. That gets into Marxist territory pretty fast. So you can answer that way. Number 33, it is wrong to question a leader in wartime. Yeah, see, this is the thing. If you have a democracy and you have an elected leader, and they're the commander in chief, and you're in a war, well, you got to decide who is going to be in charge in peacetime or whatever during the election. But if you're in a crisis, if you're in a war, it's not really your place then to question them, right? So like their decision is final. You vote for them, but once they're the commander in chief, that's their job. Now, so I'm going to say on this one, yeah, it is wrong, and it matters a fair bit. So number 34, tighter regulation would have prevented the collapse of the lending industry. It's a bit loaded. Most people wouldn't see this as a loaded question. I'll take a look at the chat again. I'm sure you guys can understand why I think that this is a loaded question, especially if you saw that debate with Liz. You'll know how I feel about this. But no, this is not the 8 values test. This is just some random one that I remember I did a long time ago, and for some reason I thought it looked cool. So and it had some different spectra available, not just a compass chart. So getting back to question 34. Tighter regulation would have prevented the collapse of the lending industry. No. If you have a lending industry, it's by definition going to collapse at some point. That's why I'm against the lending industry. I've said it before. I think that the lending industry as a whole should be abolished. Why are we going to play around with debt? I was about to use a word here that would get me kicked off of YouTube, but it starts with an R. Yeah, I'm not down with debt. Would tighter regulation prevent it? No. Would it delay a collapse? Yes. But then that's a bad thing because now we're having a debt industry longer. I want the debt industry to go away. So the sooner it collapses completely and people get woken up to the idea of debt as bad for them, that's a good thing. So tighter regulation would prevent it. No, I do disagree on that. And how much does this? Yeah, I disagree strongly on that. And it matters a lot. Debt is for idiots. So we've got number 35 here. It makes sense and is fair that some people make much more money than others. Yeah, obviously. Some people are more productive than others. Some people work in fields where they have a higher marginal productivity, etc. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And yeah, of course that matters a lot. That's like the foundation of the economic system. Number 36. Toppling enemy regimes to spread democracy will make the world a safer place. Oh, well, we'll take another look at the chat. We'll take another look at the chat here. So let's see what they're saying. I'm sure you all can figure out how I'm going to answer number 36. But I do want to see what the chat has to say about this. W.R. Winter says, Kevin, that's nuts. If Trump surrendered to Moscow, you'd be shrieking. In a military command structure, you obey your superiors. But a citizen has every right to publicly disagree with their leader. I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I get that. You should never have somebody like Trump in charge in the first place. I mean, I want a system where the public doesn't have as much of a say over foreign policy as there is now. That should be up to the Pentagon. That should be up to the national security apparatus. That shouldn't be something that, somebody who's, it can be swayed by the mob has that much say over. National security is something that should be left to the experts. It's kind of like saying, should we have surgeons? Should we have that be an elected position? Like, let's just have, Johnny second grade become the surgeon now. Let's vote for him because he had some cool memes. It's like, oh, it turns out he's not good at surgery. He killed a bunch of people. Oh, well, it was democracy. It's like, no, that should be left up to the Pentagon. So that's a huge weakness a country like the U.S. has, by the way, that the West has in general, is these like election cycles. China, Russia, they don't have that. We need a more consistent foreign policy. You should have much more. You should delegate that kind of stuff over to experts to a more long-term approach. So let's see what's going on here. Zaya says tighter regulation would have prevented the 2008 housing market collapse. Would it in every case? Probably not. Well, no, it wouldn't have prevented it. It would have delayed it. This debt culture necessitates that there will be a collapse at some point. The only way that you prevent it is to have nobody get a mortgage again and everybody pay cash for houses and people just buy smaller houses and then work and move up. That's how we should be doing it. We could get out of this entire cycle. Oh, but would we have slower growth? Would we have not as big growth? Yeah. And then we'd also escape the boom and bust cycle. And we'd escape indentured servitude and the bankruptcy crisis and the crippling health implications that come with a debt economy. Kamaljeet Ram asks, who honestly believes debt is good? Can they take my debt in the future when I get my master's and need my money for my thesis work? Liz thinks that debt is good. She said it herself because she disagreed with my statement that there was bad debt and there was less bad debt. She said, no, some debt is good. Like literally that the debt is good. So that's a brainlet take. But a bunch of the social democrats on Twitter agree with that. James Medlock on Twitter, he's got like 12,000 followers. He's a fan of debt. A lot of these people, especially like on the left, really do like debt. They like debt. They think, well, we can just build stuff now. We can build bridges now and buy crap now and worry about paying for it later. They like that idea. So it's more of a thing on the left these days to be a fan of debt. It used to be something that people would have thought of as more like right-wing capitalists and stuff. But these days, a lot of people that are on the right wing tend to be more conservative when it comes to their finances and stuff. So we'll go back to this. So toppling enemy regimes to spread democracy will make the world a safer place. Agree strongly, and that issue matters a lot. So of course, I'm the king of neocons. That's literally who I am on Twitter. I am the king of neocons. I was voted the king just the other day. Had over 300 votes. I won by I think it was like 42-point advantage or something. So over my opponent. And my opponent doesn't even consider themselves a neocon. So I am the king of the neocons. Number 37. The state has no business regulating alcohol and tobacco products. Well, no, they're addictive. They cause obvious negative externalities and a lot of social harm. So we're going to disagree with that. But it's not a super big concern for me. So obviously I'm more focused on like foreign policy and stuff. So number 38, if an unwed teen becomes pregnant, abortion may be a responsible choice. Well, I would say even if they're married, like the being married or unmarried is essentially irrelevant in a social sense. Economically speaking, it is relevant in terms of correlation. If you're married, you tend to have more wealth than if you're not married. But unwed, wed, that doesn't matter. If it is unwanted, if it's something that they're not ready for, why would you bring somebody into the world that you're not able to give them the best chance possible? So of course it's the responsible choice there. And yeah, so 39, international trade agreements should require environmental protections and workers' rights, meaning no free trade with countries that lack pollution controls or labor protections. Well, I've said this in the past before, that I think that free trade is good, but it has to be earned, and it should only be with Western democracies. And you should have to earn getting into that club by actually reforming your system so that you're in line with standards that we have in the West. So I'm mostly talking about democracy and stuff there and human rights. But yeah, environmental protections and workers' rights do go in with that. So that one's an agree strongly. And yeah, that one does matter a lot. I think free trade with communist China was one of the most disastrous things that was ever undertaken in modern history. It made sense during the Cold War. It should have stopped right after the Soviets collapsed. So, because then communist China became the enemy. But the neoliberal establishment didn't want to do it because we were addicted to their cheap crap. So, number 40, gay equality is a sign of progress. Yes. Well, yeah, I would say agree strongly on that one. Like I said, I believe in equality, equal opportunity, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, that one matters a lot. Number 41, the state should be able to put a criminal to death if the crime was serious enough. So this caused a huge bout of controversy. Well, I guess I'll take another look at the chat before I go into answering that one. So. Not too many new comments, so we'll go back here. So there was a huge bout of controversy on Twitter recently. They came for my friend Suzuki, who's for the death penalty, called him a monster, all this kind of stuff. I very recently changed my opinion on the death penalty. It's not that I'm against the death penalty anymore. I'm no longer an advocate for the death penalty. I used to be an advocate for it. I used to support it. Now I'm neutral on it. So, yes, neutral. So, number 42, the military budget should be scaled back. That is one of the easiest questions on here. What idiot in this world where you have two huge rival powers trying to take over the world and destroy everything that you stand for, and they have nukes and they're aggressive and they're building up their militaries, why would you ever scale back your military in this international configuration we have right now? Obviously, I would disagree strongly, and that issue matters the world. So that's like the most important thing is foreign policy. If we don't have a civilization, all this other stuff on here is irrelevant because then our enemies will win and they can decide whatever all this stuff is going to be. And we have to live with it because we were defeated. So I care about protecting and expanding our civilization, not theirs. So, number 43, economic competition results in innumerable innovations that improve all of our lives. Yes. Yeah. To an extent. I mean, it can be bad. Yeah. It can definitely boost innovation for sure, like the Cold War did. If it gets out of control and it actually leads to like a nuclear war, that can be counterproductive. But yeah, economic competition does speed up innovation for sure. But the world would be a better place if it was one country that was the United States. Would there be less growth rate or whatever in innovation? Maybe, but everybody would have human rights and be happy and prosperous. So. Take another look at the chat. Big Tibbs is here. Welcome, Tibbs. He's on Twitch. He says, no, it should be increased. Absolutely. Yeah, only the fringe and cringe want to cut back on the military. Yep, that's true. That's true. Yep, decreasing the budget is dumb as fuck. Yeah, like, if you want to kill yourself, defund the Pentagon. I mean, that's the easiest way to lose the Cold War, is just give up. Just give up. Say, oh, we'll just become part of Russia now. Then all this stuff, this political compass is irrelevant because now it's whatever Putin wants. We don't have a debate over any of this stuff. It's whatever the Kremlin wants for us. So how am I going to answer here? We're going to answer on that. I agree. So number 44, it is not our place to condemn other cultures as backwards or barbaric. Are you serious? What? Oh, yeah, the Taliban. That's just their culture, bro. Oh, communist China. Oh, yeah, they're building gulags right now and imprisoning 1.5 million Uyghurs and torturing them and brainwashing them to be communists and stuff and worship Xi Jinping. Oh, that's just their culture, bro. We have democracy, they have communism, it's equal. Oh, we have democracy, they have like Islamic fascism, we're equal. No, screw that. Some cultures are infinitely better than others. So it's not our place. No, of course it's our place. And again, that's another one of those where it's like it matters the world. There's not even a point to all the military stuff if our culture sucks. So, number 45, when one group is slaughtering another group somewhere in the world, we have a responsibility to intervene. Yeah. I mean, there's nuance there. It depends if they have nukes or not and stuff like that. That complicates it. You want to intervene before they get nukes. But yeah, like Rwanda is a classic case of this. No nukes, would have been an easy intervention. Oh, but we're bad, so let's just let 1 million people die. Amazing, right? That's what our opponents would have. Yeah, I agree with Big Tibbs here. Fuck cultural relativism. Like, I'm a moral universalist. My meme page. I'll put my meme page in the Chiron right now. Go and like and follow it. Liberal Hawk memes for moral universalist teens, not moral relativist teens, moral universalist teens. So Tibbs asks, how have I been? I've been good, but I've been busy as hell, man. How are you? Yep, number 46. We'd be better off if we could just lock up some of the people expressing radical political views and keep them away from society. Yeah, disagree on that one. I think we need to get to a culture where it's seen as like if you're going to be like singing the praise of Daddy Vladdy and stuff, people are just going to see you as a circus clown. I really think like, oh, lock up people or whatever for simply expressing radical political views. No, but if you're going to like do spying for Russia, or if you're literally going to do like espionage or terrorism or something like that, then that's different. But simply expressing radical political views, no. I mean, who gets to decide what's radical? That kind of stuff. So I guess I would say disagree strongly on that. And so, number 47, unrestrained capitalism cannot last as wealth and power will concentrate to a small elite. Well, unrestrained capitalism, that has that ever even really existed? There's always been some regulation, some intervention in the economy, etc. Yeah, unrestrained capitalism cannot last. Well, we are seeing right now restrained capitalism. We have a very regulated market right now, high taxes, etc. And what's happening? Wealth and power are still concentrated in a small elite. That's just how it goes. The question is, I don't really care if like Bill Gates gets richer. I care about what's the floor. Is the average person moving up each year? Well, if that's the case, then you have no right to complain if Bill Gates also moves up. So I'm going to say I disagree on this because that wealth and power concentration to a small elite, that's true in capitalism. It's true in restrained capitalism. It's true in unrestrained capitalism. It's true in communism. Look at communist systems. Wealth and power concentrated in a small elite. That describes the Soviet Union. That describes North Korea. Kim Jong-un has $15 billion. He has half of the GDP of the economy in his personal bank account. So, and they're a communist system. So, you know what? I'm going to say disagree strongly on this one. Not that it's not even necessarily true. It's just, it's a really anti-capitalist sentiment there. So, I guess technically disagree, and it matters a lot because it is still technically true for capitalism. It's just it's true for any system as time goes on. Number 48 is it is a problem when young people display a lack of respect for authority. Yeah, I'm neutral on this one. It can be a problem, but also you want to have an open society. So, number 49, when corporate interests become too powerful, the state should take action to ensure the public interest is served. There are negative externalities, as I talked about earlier. We'll go and take another look at the chat, though. So, Dr. Zaya says, Kevin, this test is going to call you Hitler. Just warning you. Oh, yeah, no, the test was definitely made by like a Tulsi libertarian, anti war, open borders idiot for sure. No doubt. No doubt. Like, you hate to see it. But I mean, I am the king of the neocons. We'll see how this goes. Is it going to call me Hitler? We'll see. We'll see. We'll take a look. It'll be fun. So, back to this question. Yeah, like I support like antitrust type legislation. Like, there's a lot of stuff where, in general, there's a case to be made for intervention where externalities and where the nature of an industry tends towards a monopoly. There's a case to be made for government intervention there to offset the loss that occurs within that to the total system. Like, if you take in like cost benefit analysis classes, that kind of stuff, you go over that kind of thing. Yeah, like government intervention in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It depends on what's the sector, what are the trends within that sector, for what reason is the intervention occurring, etc. There is definitely a case that if it's done properly, the state can take action so that there is a more optimal outcome that will occur. That is true. So that matters quite a bit. So number 50, a person's morality is of the most personal nature. Therefore, government should have no involvement in moral questions or promote moral behaviors. Well, this kind of goes back to one of those earlier questions that was saying like the government should enforce moral behavior or whatever. It's like, define moral behavior. Like, is not killing people just moral behavior? Like, where are we drawing the line there? I think the government does have a role in trying to set an example for, how to structure a proper order and whatnot. I think, yeah, obviously personal morality is personal, yeah, but there should be a standard. You can't just have people going around and rioting, that kind of stuff or whatever. I think that there is a certain level of behavior that I think the government should promote, and so on that, it's not that big of a deal. In fact, I'm probably going to give this one closer to the little side there, but I would say on this one, I would say disagree, and then it matters somewhat on the little side. So, what else do we have here? Oh, we got Mr. Bong in the house. That's dope. We got Henry too. Neocons. What about the neo-bongs? Oh man. So the state should not set a minimum wage. Oh man. This one's a hot take for me. Oh man, this one's a hot take from me for sure. I agree on this one, and it matters a lot. Imagine there was no minimum wage right now. You're thinking like, well, then they could pay you 1 cent an hour. Yeah, but nobody's going to work for that. There's supply and demand, etc. I think if you got rid of a minimum wage, not very much would change at all right now. In fact, there's a really good case to be made that society would be better off, because right now, if you're a company and you see somebody who doesn't have any work experience, nothing, and they want to work, but they're not really going to be productive right away, right? Well, if you got, say, a $15 an hour minimum wage, and you know that this guy who just walked in for the interview, Johnny, no experience dude, he comes in and he's like, you could see, you're like, this guy's probably worth like $9 an hour. You're literally not allowed to hire him. You're literally required legally to turn him away and not give him a job, because he's not going to meet the minimum level of productivity to justify getting that job. So the higher the minimum wage, the higher the unemployment, because the fewer people there are that you could justify paying that wage to. The lower the minimum wage, the lower the unemployment. Because now, if, for whatever reason, maybe you're not the most productive, maybe it's like a mental issue or something, whatever, you're not worth $15 an hour. Well, if there's no more minimum wage, then a company can say, hey, look, we think you're worth like $8 an hour. And and so we're going to pay you like $6 an hour because we need to make a profit. Well, you might say, well, that person's getting less now. Well, no, they were getting zero before. Now they can actually get a job without the government literally telling you you're not allowed to hire this dude. So additionally speaking, I mean, there have been studies that are done on this too that find that usually if the what is it, if the minimum wage goes up by 1%, I think it was that the unemployment goes up by 0.25%. So if you are somebody who is still going to have a job and you get the minimum wage, if you're somebody who still has a job and the minimum wage goes up, you're better off. But there's also a group of people that lose completely from it. Again, it's a cost-benefit analysis. There's a group of winners and a group of losers with a minimum wage. Who loses with a higher minimum wage? Those who weren't as productive before. Because now they literally are not allowed to keep working there because the government says you can't pay them what they're worth because they're worth less than what the minimum wage is. So if we got rid of a minimum wage entirely, there you would have essentially no involuntary unemployment. Everybody would be able to get a job at that point. So you might say, well, in this case, this dude, it's not fair that he's only getting $6 an hour. Well, it might be fair. It depends. Is another place willing to offer him $9 an hour? If they are, then he'll go and work there. If they're not, then he's worth like, what, $6 an hour? That's better than zero, which he was getting before. So, you know what? I'm going to say strongly agree on this, actually. Like, I think minimum wage is counterproductive. So, number 52. But we're going to take a look at what people are saying in the chat. Let's see. Okay, number 52. A nation's retirement safety net cannot be trusted to the fluctuations of the stock market. I'm not even 100% sure what this is getting at. So I guess we're supposed to, well, I mean, I guess maybe it's talking about the idea of a pay-as-you-go social security system. So you tax people this month and you use that tax money to pay pensions that month, that sort of thing, like a pension plan, that kind of stuff. But you could also make the argument that a person's retirement safety net shouldn't be trusted to the fluctuations of the government because the government could also overturn Social Security any night. So, any day. So I think you want to have people be in charge of their own retirement, but you also do want to have a safety net, as it mentioned. So, yeah, it can't really be trusted to the fluctuations of the stock market, but also people shouldn't be trusting the government as their retirement plan. So, I'm gonna say, yeah, I agree. We'll put it more on this side. Offensive or blasphemous art should be suppressed. Okay, who gets to define what's offensive and blasphemous, I believe, is defined necessarily in a religious context. So disagree strongly. I mean, that's a matter of freedom of speech right there. Number 54, optional. Please share some info about yourself. Okay, doesn't look like I'm really going to dox myself here, so select your age group, 18 to 29. Select your gender, male. Oh, interesting. They didn't give a bunch of options there. It's just binary. Interesting. Select my country. Select your race or ethnicity. Well, I'm white in case you guys didn't know. Select your political party. Well, I'm not actually a member of any party right now. I used to be a card-carrying member of a party when I was in high school, but I'm going to be voting for the Conservative Party, so I guess I'll put Canada Conservative Party, and we'll see what happens. But we'll go back to the chat. Oh, we got 18 people here now. That's cool. Okay, so we're about to get the results. Let's see. Is it going to call me literally Hitler? Let's take a look. So 54 questions. Let's see. So the political spectrum quiz is a special presentation of Go-To Quiz. Are you a neocon? A neocon ghoul? A social libertarian? A fiscal moderate? Complete the quiz, express your opinions, and find out. Yeah, well, we expressed some opinions tonight. Then explore the thousands of user-created quizzes on this site. So, okay. Get my results. Here we go. Whoa, that's interesting. So it actually put me below the center line. Oftentimes when I do these, it puts me like slightly in the auth right direction. This one's got me on the lib right direction. Okay, so you are a centrist, moderate, social libertarian. Interesting. Yeah, it's like the Chad centrist meme. Yeah, dirty centrist. Oh, man. So I'm 0.29 to the right and 2.12 on the libertarian. I guess each one out of 10, so slightly to the right. Here we go. Foreign policy. On the left side are pacifists and anti-war activists. On the right side are those who want a strong military that intervenes around the world. You scored 6.72. Wait, why am I not like right at the end of that? Weird. The last time I took this was like a year ago. I was like basically right at the end on the neocon side. By the way, the opposite of a non-interventionist is not a neocon. Just, you know, I get it. People think like, oh, neocon war, that kind of thing. Neoconservatism, for those of you who don't know, neoconservatism is basically, it's people who used to be on the left, now they're on the right. They believe in essentially like, you know, democracy intervention. The spreading democracy is good, that taking out dictatorships is bad. They believe in anti-communism, anti-radicalism. They believe in, you know, of course there's the tradition going back to Irving Kristol and Associates, and of course going all the way up to modern times with, you know, the neocons that we have right now. Yeah. You could say interventionist versus non-interventionist. That would make sense. Neoconservative, it's like, yeah, but not everybody who's an interventionist is a neoconservative. So, culture. Where are you in the culture war? On the liberal side or the conservative side? This scale may apply more to the US than other countries. Scored minus 1.72. Has me as a slight cultural liberal. Yeah, I guess that's right around kind of where I fit. I kind of see myself as in like, you know, that center range kind of, depending on who's making the test. So that's what it looks like there. So that's a test. So remove this. Oh man. Yeah, almost a bullseye. Yeah, so that test was weird. That test was definitely weird. I know it was made by some libertarians and stuff, but like I was expecting to be more on the auth right. I was expecting to be more neocon, and I was expecting to be maybe slightly a bit further liberal on the social side. But the thing that I like about this one though is that what it gets right is that it gives a place for economics, a place for foreign policy, and it gives a place for social issues, because those are the three big aspects of politics. But it didn't ask if I want to nuke first and ask questions later, though. So I guess that's why I didn't get further right on the neocon side. But oh man. Yeah, I basically agree with Big Tibbs here. He says we want a moral populace, but we don't want a theocracy. Yeah, I'm against theocracy. And then we got American Madhouse. When is the Dylan debate happening? Well, I was talking with Dylan. Okay, this is what was interesting. Dylan ran by an idea today to me, and he said, what do you think of a 2v2? He wanted to get some dude from the Surfs, which I've never seen, but I looked them up. Apparently, they have like 50,000 subs. And he wanted to have a 2v2. I'm like, well, the only person that I would do that with would be Reese, because he and I share positions on this issue, which is, you know, first use of nuclear weapons. he basically, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. I don't know that much about Burns. Burns seemed like an okay guy and everything else, but it's kind of weird. Kind of weird. You're like, you're going into this debate and people are hyping you up like you're going to kill, you're going to crush Castley, that kind of stuff. And then you're like, oh man, can we make it a 2v2? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty confident about this debate. I'll just say that. Like, it did not give power vibes. That was not alpha moves right there. Just like, I mean, I got vibes that he's worried about how this debate is going to go. My guess is he saw the one with Liz and realized, well, he's not just going to be able to coast on the idea that Nuke's bad, Nuke's spooky. How can you believe this? How can you say this? It's like, no, we're going to have an actual conversation and we're going to talk about serious issues. Liz wanted to have it like, oh, you like people dying from nukes and I don't. Like as if I like nuclear war or something. Complete brainlet. Yeah, no, so what did I tell Burns? I said to him, I'm like, let's keep it 1v1 like the original plan. So we're doing a 1v1. I haven't heard back from him, but we will set up that debate in due time. It will be happening. So, and again, it would be cool to debate with Reese as a debate partner, but like, let's keep it real. If that's what we're going to do, let's arrange that from the beginning. I don't like this idea that, oh, can we switch up how the debates can be structured after we already agreed to do the debate under different terms? It looks weak. I got to say, it looks weak. I don't know. Do you guys get that vibe from this? Because, I mean, if I think I'm going to crush a debate, am I going to be like, yo, can I bring in my friend? It doesn't give off those power vibes. That's all I'm saying. So. Henry says 2v2 debates suck. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've never done a 2v2 debate before. I've done a lot of debates, did some debates and stuff back in university. Obviously, I've done the one with Liz. Never really done a 2v2 debate, like not a formal debate or anything, 2v2. It just sounds kind of weird. I guess it could be cool, but I mean, we're definitely not switching it up after we already agreed to a 1v1, though. That's the thing. So, also, I did find out that the surf guy, I forget the guy's name, that he's basically really kind of bad faith actor and stuff. So it would risk turning the conversation into a total crap show, total circus, and then nobody gets any value out of that. So. Nicholas asks, what happens during 2v2 debates that make them so bad? Well, yeah, I haven't really watched too much in 2v2 debates. I've seen some with like Alex O'Connor and stuff, but generally speaking, it makes it more tumultuous. People can't get as much time to speak. It's harder for the moderator to moderate, that kind of stuff. So you have to have really disciplined people debating in that case. And this surfs dude sounded like a child. So my guess is Dylan's probably thinking like, oh crap, this debate might not be as easy as I thought it was because Liz lost. But Liz was convinced, oh, Kevin's evil. Kevin wants to kill people with nukes. Yeah, like these people are going to wake up and realize that they can't just say like, how can you believe that as if that's some gotcha and then not expect to have me explain how I can believe something. Because that was the fatal mistake that Liz did. She's like, how can you say that? And I'm like, okay, well, allow me to clarify. Here's what I think. Here's the conditions right now. Here's what we do about it. And she's like, but nuke skelly. It's like, yeah, that's not an argument. They already have nukes. Like, what are you gonna do about it? So Henry says, yeah, it would be best if it was just you and Dylan having a conversation. Bringing in more people just makes chaos. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. But again, it could be a cool idea. Like if we organize that from the get-go, we have a debate in the future with people, and it's like me and Reese versus two other people. They gotta be serious people and stuff, and like, negotiate or debate in good faith, that kind of thing. Could be fun. Could be fun. Like I'm open to it. It is just kind of weird though. This idea that like, hey man, do you want to make it a 2v2 like a week after we decided that we were going to have this debate? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to say 100% that like Dylan's nervous or anything right now. He might have just been like, oh, this could be kind of cool. That's possible, right? Benefit of the doubt there. But does look kind of weak. Does look kind of weak because I wasn't the one asking to make it a 2v2. Like I've been preparing to win a 1v1. So yeah, Ariel Suarez says 2v2 works well if all the people are in the same room. Over the internet, it can get wild. Yeah, that's a really good point. Big Tibbs says, sounds like Liz lives in an echo chamber. Oh yeah, for sure. She cancels anybody who disagrees with her, right? So she doesn't even have the neolibs left. It's just the radicals now. It's just a bunch of sucks. Nicholas says Liz was definitely trying to find something to take out of context. Oh yeah, I mean, she did a ton of research. She went through hundreds of my tweets, bunch of stuff, a lot of hot takes, right? And I just thought it was ironic because I'm like, this is from a woman who has several hot takes an hour. I already said, I'm like, yeah, I've got quite a few hot takes. But again, glass house, right? So Olympian God asks, Kevin, what do you think about Israel trying to bait Iran into a conflict? This is how the news phrases it. Oh man. Israel versus Iran in an actual war would be tragic. Israel and the US and Britain and Canada and a Western coalition going in against Iran would be the best thing that we can do right now, given that they're trying to get nukes, and it's unacceptable for them to get nukes. So Iran has to go. Like that regime cannot be allowed to stay in power another 2 years. They will get nukes. We have to take out Iran now, basically. So, because a nuclear Iran will be 1,000 times more stressful than what's going on right now. So, I mean, that is a huge problem. The Iranian belligerence. Big Tib says, yeah, I'm blocked by her. Well, I blocked her, and in the run up to the debate, I did unblock her. She hasn't blocked me yet or anything, but yeah. No, there's a lot of people that she blocked and canceled, and Mexicanator says North Korea is close to thermonuclear. Yeah, I tweet that out every day now. What do I tweet out? I say just your reminder, your daily reminder that Iran is very close to getting nukes and North Korea is very close to getting H bombs. Our window of opportunity is closing, and it's a travesty. Yeah, Dr. Zaya says Iran will nuke Israel the second they have the capability. Yeah, there's this idea out there that, oh, you won't nuke somebody because you know that if you nuke them, they'll nuke you back because, of course, Israel has nukes. Yeah, that's the problem. They know that Israel will nuke them back. They want to die as martyrs. That would be their dream come true because in their view, they would be raptured up to paradise, to Jannah, to the garden immediately. In their view, God would tell them, you died nuking Israel. You used your country as a vessel through which to break nuclear hellfire against the Jews' base. That's what they believe. How are we going to let these people have nukes? Obama was such a disgrace. Like the 2008 election was so consequential. I know people talk all the time like how 2016 was so important and how it went the wrong way and everything. I get that, but 2008 was way more important. Imagine John McCain won in 2008. Syria would be free today. He would have bombed Assad right from the get-go in 2011. The whole refugee crisis never would have happened. They'd have a free country within a year. John McCain would have bombed Iran. So they would have never got nukes. Never been close to getting nukes. This whole Iran deal thing never would have happened. They would have been a free country by now. An ally of Israel, an ally of Saudi Arabia, an ally of the U.S., etc. Right? No, we got Barack Obama. Barack Obama, whose literal policy on North Korea was quote unquote strategic procrastination. Well, he called it patience, but you get the picture. Pathetic. John McCain would have bombed the shit out of North Korea. They would have never been this close to getting H bombs. They would have been dead. American Mad Hawk says Romney should have won in 2012. None of this would have happened. It's a bit late. I would have preferred John McCain in 2008, John McCain in 2012, then Hillary Clinton in 2016. Sure. Dr. Zaya says McCain really fucked up with Palin. I don't know. I need to see more polling data and stuff. I don't really think that that's true. I mean, she was pretty popular in the Republican Party, so. Because you could say the same about Trump. Like, if Trump lost, you could say, oh, he screwed up by choosing Pence, but it's like he won with Pence. Well, McCain could have won with Palin. It was a close election, so. Oh, yeah, Palin's another. Yeah, so is Obama. Palin was decently hawkish, to my understanding, so. Nicholas says the atmosphere was just not in McCain's favor at all in 2008. Yeah, that's a huge problem. Oh, Iraq war bad, Saddam good, that kind of stuff. Those memes, huge problem, huge threat, huge issue. So I'm going to wrap this up right now, but thank you for watching, everybody. Be sure to follow me over on Twitch if you haven't done so yet. Links in the description below. Go follow me on Twitter as well. That's Kevin Castley. Definitely go and check out my Patreon if you haven't done so yet. That's patreon.com/superpowered broadcasting. I appreciate all the patrons that we've already got here. You guys make these daily streams possible. So big up to the patron gang. And if you'd like to send me a tip, my PayPal link is in the description below. And so thank you for being here, everybody. And, peace, Warhawks. Have a good night.